Greetings. Today's topics are what's going. Oh, greetings. Today's topics are what's going on with the Cummins uh, um, competition against Tesla. The second topic we cover today is sort of near term. Where are we with the number one, the stockpile question of where are we with the stock of Tesla. The third issue we cover today is what's going on with stockpiles of unsold Model 3s in California when there are a number of folks that don't have their cars yet. Wanted to say greetings to everyone saying hello, Jerry and Jan. We'll reserve our answers to questions and hellos till the end of our show. Want to thank you all once again for joining us. Please make a note. We can use some help on Patreon. Our link is below. Also, your like and comments affect how the show is ranked. And finally, hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Jerry, thanks for the encouragement to go to Super Chat. I have to be on my laptop to get that done, and it looks like this is definitely a goal for us in the next week or so. So I will get my act together in that regard, or our act. I have some interesting things going on here. First of all, I'm a big fan of Cummins engine. I went to a boarding school at Culver Academy, partially on a Cummins scholarship. So I got to know, I have a lot of friends who are in management who are also involved in running Cummins franchises, so I'm a big fan of the company, really rooting for them to be successful, including in the electric space. So I wanted to highlight the fact that I really felt like Cummins was dropping the ball when it came to electric, but there are some new surprises I didn't know about, which one of our viewers asked for a Cummins update. So I did some digging and found out that Cummins is in a period right now where they have a company I believe called EDI out of Silicon Valley. They're actually doing retrofits of vehicles over to electric. They have a 100-mile range vehicle that they currently provide. EDI also has a bus contract in China that they're now doing initial tests on, and then they'll roll out from there. I thought that was impressive because China has its own providers of buses, and the fact that they secured that contract was pretty impressive. Also, as you know, BAMO is a company that was providing, they're providing electric motorcycles, and it was a company purchased by Cummins, I want to say the beginning of this year, end of last year. So I really thought that Cummins was going to drop the ball and get blown away as Tesla ramped up. But it looks like there are acquisitions going on here that really show that, they're serious about doing something in electric. It's my humble assessment based on them now having a 100-mile sort of engine set up in the electric space that, they've sort of moved forward 5 years with that acquisition. So hopefully it closes in an efficient manner by, the end of this year so they can go on from there. I'm sort of confused, I have to admit. I look forward to what you guys have to say about this, which is there's this thing where a lot of my viewers have pointed out that there's a difference between an electric motor and a diesel engine. As we know, 2,000 parts for a diesel engine or an engine, 20 or 30 parts for a car-based electric motor. And as we know, for example, in the semi zone, Tesla's using 4 electric motors for their semi, and for the cars, they're either using 1 or 2. The question that's been popping in my mind is, can Cummins make it on its own as simply a electric motor provider as we transition into electric being a dominant form of how vehicles are being moved around, especially in high density areas where there are pollution problems. If you only have 17 parts per motor and you got 4 motors, so in theory, you're only talking you know, 20, so we're talking 80 parts here. How much cost can there be in those motors when there are so few missing parts and it's so small? So it's my assessment that they're going to have to think about reverse engineering or moving up the supply chain to provide more, because they really don't have enough revenue. I mean, it's like $5,000 to $10,000 per engine sold. Cummins is the largest provider of diesel engines in the world, and I'm just not seeing how the numbers work out as we move over to um, electric motors dominating. Is there time for them to figure it out? I think they got a good 5 to 8 years before Tesla's at scale when it comes to trucks, and then competitors copy what they're doing and start really making a dent in that space. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. The other thing to note is that just like Daimler and others, everybody's stuck at the 100-mile range-ish on these vehicles based on the fact that they're operating with 18650 batteries coming likely from Samsung or some other Korean manufacturer. So everybody's stuck there until the how to build a Tesla length battery is achieved. The next thing I wanted to cover today, driven by one of comments made by a viewer, is the fact that, given that we called the 50-point move of the stock over the last 45 days, the question is, should we be doing more when it comes to the investment potential of Tesla and kind of where we are currently and where we're headed based on what our expected or core capabilities are. I think right now we're really in, so what tends to happen with stocks is right around earnings, you'll see a big move up or down depending on how earnings came through and if there hasn't been any major news to tank the market beyond those companies. Tesla obviously did well on this earnings announcement based on the 5,000 per week production run that they've achieved, and they're working to get above that, and it's now August, so in theory, they're up to 6,000 units. I really think that for Tesla, as we move through these earnings announcements or announcements about how many are being produced, we're doing, I want to say, a slow climb, not a rapid climb like what Elon was able to generate with the announcement of the potential buyout. I think that there are a lot more reasons for the stock to fall in the short term than rise. Those reasons would include, number one, generate market malaise. Mr. Trump is introducing a lot of issues that potentially create problems for the market in Turkey and their currency. Number one. Number two, there is no earnings numbers. Number three, Tesla's not giving away what the numbers are on production, so you're kind of left adding up how many cars would be sold and then multiplying it by X number of weeks. And now you can sort of assess what the earnings or revenue, at least potential, gross revenue potential is of the company. And I don't see any real surprises there. The only surprise I see potentially on the negative side is the fact that it's been discussed that there was an effort to transition from what happened is to meet the 5,000 a week goals. There was an effort to switch production at the Gigafactory, lowering the number of battery packs that were produced to increase the number of vehicles that were getting those batteries and battery packs. So if anything, maybe you have a little bit lower revenue from those battery packs and increased revenue for the Model 3 in the process. So long-winded statement to say, I think if anything, there are some negative down surprises that might occur, and not too many upside surprises that that are sort of sitting out there in my mind. The final area I wanted to cover today is if you guys jump up on our Tesla Fan Insight over at Facebook, we're going to start doing Instagram as I figured out, or we figure it out. But I'm always intrigued because every time I go by that place, I'm thinking I'll take my pictures for the week, I'll load it up on the channel, but there can't be anything new because I've visited there so many times. And the answer is I'm wrong. I went there today and there was a truck that had just emptied off mostly Model 3s. And once I rolled up to the driver of the truck and I asked him, I said, did you just come from California with those Model 3s? And he's like, no, I came from Alabama. And I was like, really? And probably one mistake I made was to ask him how many cars there were on that train. But what he explained was that what Tesla's actually doing is loading their cars up in California at near the Fremont plant, I believe at 1,000 cars at a time, and shipping cross country to Alabama. So the cars that we saw in the Tyson's Corner, DC area were coming up by truck from Alabama, and I would therefore assume that it's sort of the eastern seaboard because we're in the Maryland, DC area. You would assume then, let's say Philly and New York are also drawing their cars from that allotment, and it's a within a day drive. I kind of think this is smart because cross country for a car is about $500 a car, and if you go by train, in theory, it's $100 a car for that portion, and maybe another 100 to your location because it's a half day's ride. And let's say from Alabama, yeah, I think that's about right. Let's say it's 8 hours or so. So in theory, your per car cost of shipment is actually a lot lower, even if I don't think the cars are as well protected if they're exposed on a train, etc. So this answers the question that everybody wanted to know, which was, is Tesla experiencing a decline demand for the Model 3, and therefore they should have gotten smashed on the stock? And the answer is the stockpiled cars that we're seeing in California at those lots require a certain number of vehicles before you load to trains. And in my gut, it's saying somewhere between 500 and 1,000 cars, which is about what we saw in the loading docks in Northern and Southern California. So, for those hedge funds that suggested there's now a declining demand for the Model 3, I don't think it's there. The other thing I wanted to note is that if you look at the photos, you'll notice that every time we go, the vehicles are oriented differently. So in our latest visit, there's an internal warehouse and then there's external storage on the streets. They've actually changed around the external vehicle storage such that they can have double or triple the number of vehicles that are outside waiting for pickup by customers than could be done previously. So I just think this is kind of interesting. I'm going to keep doing our once a week postings here. I think all of you, if you count the number of cars, you can check out colors that are being chosen by customers. There's all kinds of sort of empirical information that you can gather by taking a look. So I want to encourage you guys to take a look at these, take a look at our postings for the last few weeks at Tesla Fan Insight on Facebook, because I think it'll give you insight in terms of what's going on. I have to admit that from what I could see, things have transitioned from being a mix of Model 3 S's, etc., into pretty much it's the Model 3 show with a light touch of Model X and S going on, which makes sense based on all the numbers that we're seeing. Interested in what your comments might be or questions. Finally, I wanted to remind you that we're promoting good health here at Tesla Fan Insight. So don't forget 5-pound weights on each leg, 20 leg lifts a day. I did mine yesterday. I'm about to do mine today. Take a look at the 5-2 diet as well as the paleo diet. Highly recommended. If you're doing, particularly it's summer here, make sure SPF 30 or greater according to the cancer docs regarding making sure that you don't get skin cancer. And then finally, no eating within 2 hours of going to bed, because potential for upper respiratory cancer is higher when you do that regularly. Highly recommended to consider. I think sort of covers what's been going on this week. As you all know, there's some question mark about how by the way, thanks for the omega-3 comment. I've heard good things about that as well. Good job on the leg list for kids. With kids, that's kind of fun. I'm sort of keeping my fingers crossed. I have to admit that Elon will choose to change what he's doing. Michigan is a very large state, and to not have a service facility in Toledo to service the Michigan marketplace, I think is really unwise. because it requires you to travel a pretty long distance to address needs of customers that might be had within such a large state as Michigan. I've heard stories of there being a 3 or 4 hour drive from the service facility to pick up a car in Michigan and then back to their Cleveland service facility again. Um, Amen on the diet there. Thanks for the commentary there. At any rate, I don't want to belabor without having good reason to continue. Um, yeah, Michigan won't allow them to build there because all those car companies are definitely powerful in keeping them out. So that's definitely not going to happen. At any rate, I want to thank you again for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe. We could definitely use some help in Patreon if you would. Also, any and all comments are appreciated, especially if they're respectful. We are Tesla Fan Insight, so if you hate Tesla, this is a bad site for you. Elon, please, let's get this thing profitable so that it leaves room for a whole bunch more good things to happen for the company and for the planet as the company does well. Again, German, tschüss, French, au revoir, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Lahitrot, Hebrew, Farvel, Dutch, and in Jamaica we say, Nof respect wa goodman. Thank you once again for joining us and look forward to our next visit.